Hi, everyone. Welcome to Azure User Group Sweden. Hi, Håkan.
Hello,
Good
Jonah.
afternoon, good noon to
Uh,
you and everyone.
yes, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. How about you?
Yes, very, very good. You have a very lovely
Yes.
background.
Yeah, I'm actually in the kitchen with my plants and my dog's toy, a teddy bear. Yes, yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's good to change environment sometimes when you're
Yes,
streaming. Yes, yeah. Yeah, I hope everyone are doing great today, and we're happy to be back this Saturday, and we have an interesting session coming about GitHub code spaces. So before we start, let me just introduce my co-host or co-community leader, Håkan, today. So to those that are new and who don't know us, so I would like to introduce Håkan Silvernagel. He works as a manager for AI and big data at Miles, Norway. And he is also Microsoft MVP for AI and also an active community leader in .NET user group in Oslo, in Norway, Oslo AI, and also AI 42, and an active international speaker everywhere. Yes, so yeah, pleasure to work with you, Håkan, in the
yeah,
community.
yeah. Likewise, Jonah. So let me introduce Jonah. So Jonah Anderson is a Microsoft Azure MVP, and she is also a public international speaker. She's a Microsoft certified trainer and also a mentor. And in addition to all of that, she is also a book author. So, what is your book about, Jonah?
It's also about Azure.
Oh.
So I'm in the middle of my book project writing first time about Azure, and it's entitled Learning Microsoft Azure to help those that are still getting started in this cloud technology. So yeah, it's a good complement to this user group. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So thank you, Håkan, for the introduction. So before we introduce our speaker today from the Netherlands, let me just share to everyone our code of conduct. So in our community, we have our code of conduct, and we are asking everyone to be nice and friendly, listen with purpose, and be thoughtful. Be respectful to others, seek to understand and not criticize, be curious and open to share your ideas, and be inclusive and respectful in your comments and questions during the stream, and even during our Zoom meetings after session. If you have questions, feel free to contact me and Håkan or read more of our code of conduct on this page. And I would like to share also about the Azure Learner badge. To those that are familiar with Azure Heroes, you are welcome to claim your learner badge by scanning this QR code. And this is to appreciate your learning time together with us in our user group. And Håkan, maybe you can share about the Fika.
Yes. Yeah. So after we have finished with our session here, then we will invite you to a Zoom meeting where we'll have a short informal gathering. So for those of you who likes to ask more questions to Daniel, then you can join that meeting, and we'll send out the link here at the end of our session.
Yes, thank you. All right, so let me just welcome our guest speaker. So, our guest speaker for today, who will share about GitHub Codespaces, is Daniel Paulus. He is a serial conference organizer and meetup runner. He works as a principal consultant at Bryte Blue, a Microsoft Azure MVP, and he is also helping companies succeed with cloud native technologies and DevOps practices. So let's welcome Daniel on the stage. Hi,
Good
Daniel.
morning. Oh, wait, it's already afternoon.
Yes, just just 5 minutes ago, like less. Yeah, welcome. Glad that you can join us virtually from the Netherlands.
I love to. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So
I hope that
the
the
what?
weather there is a bit better than here because it's quite rainy. So I hope that you have sun.
Yes,
We don't
at
have
least
sun. I don't have sun
Oh,
in
yeah,
my area.
okay.
I have sand in my part of the world.
Oh,
At
you're
least,
the winner,
yes.
Håkan.
Nice.
Great. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes. Would you like? Should we go ahead and start with the session, or do you want to have something to say first with before we
Oh,
start?
no. Let's start. I love to talk about
Let's go ahead.
Codespaces, so let's
Yes.
begin.
Let's do that.
Um,
Okay. Let's see. Let's bring it to the stage and remove me and Håkan.
all right. Thank you all for joining on this Saturday. I love to talk about Codespaces and I love to talk about things to the community. So today I want to chat with you. Let me remove this. So I want to chat with you a bit about what Codespaces is and how I think it can help you to get fast starting your new project and onboarding new team members. So, like was said in the introduction, my name is Daniel Paulus. I am an Azure MVP, and at daytime I work at Bryte Blue as a principal consultant. You can find me on GitHub and on Twitter as PaulusTM. Please ping me, add me on all your pictures from where you are watching. I love to see those. And my DMs are open. So if you have any questions, just send them to me or wait till the end to ask them. So in my day-to-day work, like I said, I join lots of different teams. And that was exactly why I always had a hassle with setting up and versions and stuff of the project. And that's why I think that Codespaces is a really good next iteration of online compute. Let's talk about the content for today. I want to talk with you about what a developer workflow is, or how I think it looks like. Then I want to show you in a picture what Codespaces is, but a picture doesn't say anything, right? So then I'm gonna do a demo. In this demo, I'm gonna show you two nice applications, and then I show you how that workflow works inside of a code space. After the demo, I'm gonna show you how you can get this for yourself, and then we have time for lots of questions. So I think I will take half an hour of your time, and after that we can take quite long for the questions. So please ask your questions. All right. So what is a developer workflow? As I said, I join lots of different teams, and all of those teams use different software, use different versions, and they all uh, uh, have their own way of working. Most of the time, the documentation lacks, right? They started the documentation when they started the project, and then the project changed or evolved, and they never updated the documentation. I work a lot with infrastructure, so I use a lot of Terraform, which has lots of different versions, and they all differ, right? So if I join a new team, first thing that I do is, okay, what are the versions that you use? And if if they are up to speed, then that will take me half a day to set everything up. But what happens a lot is that I have to go to different people to get everything in order to make sure that I have also all the small projects that they use, the minor like test suites and stuff. And most of the time, it it takes a while and it takes a few iterations before my setup is actually really complete and things go smoothly, right? But next stage, developing. So let's say you have a nice API and you want me to add a feature in it. I have everything set up. So let's add this feature. Hopefully I'm done in an hour, and then I'm gonna run some tests. Hopefully the setup phase has helped me to set up the test environment as well. If that was not the case, we first have to set up the test environment. We need to make sure that I don't get any false positives because I miss stuff. But hopefully that all goes smooth. My tests run locally, and I can push to an integration environment. Hopefully I have access and everything works, and the builds go all right and stuff. Then we go to the optimize phase. I see a lot of scanning tools that are used in this phase, so I want to make sure that I have everything in order to follow the process. And then hopefully in the end we can deploy the software, and hopefully that's also done automatically, but I should be able to deploy. Well, hopefully if I join a new team, I can contribute on the same day, but usually it takes a few days before I can actually start to add value. And that makes me sad. I want to, when I join a new team, I want to put value in from the start. Let's talk about GitHub Codespaces. As you see on this picture, it looks really a lot like your Visual Studio that you already know. It's basically the exact same thing. The only difference is it runs entirely in the cloud. So it's a fully powered IDE with syntax highlighting, debugging, auto-completion. You can install plugins, and you can share configuration. And that sharing configuration is exactly what I'm going to talk about today a lot. Because if you have everything set up in your editor, how nice is it that you can give that configuration to me and everything is done out of the box? The nice part of Codespaces is that you can run it everywhere because it runs from the browser. I've actually made a code change on an iPad, in a train, on a 5G internet connection. So it gives a whole new range of possibilities that we've never seen before. I'm going to do a demonstration of Codespaces, and for that I'm going to switch. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. And then share the new one. All right, zoom in a bit. So in order to use Codespaces, you just go to your GitHub. I have made this Codespaces demo. It's not public yet, but you will see this on every repo that you have. So you don't need to use this repository. In order to start the Codespace, instead of doing a local clone, we're gonna switch to the Codespaces tab that you see on your code tab. I don't have any Codespace up and running right now, so let's create a new Codespace. What we see here is that it's starting an image. It's building a container. Also zooming this, nice. And it's now connecting me to the Codespace. And here we are. Again, this really looks like your own it's quite chatty, but looks like your own VS Code, right? We have the code here. We have a bunch of extensions already installed, but we can install other ones as well. We can interact with GitHub. We can interact with Azure. But for now, let's look at the code. In the terminal, you see that we use a standard image. You are on the default image. Can I zoom in? Yeah. You are on the default image, which basically means that we have the standard Codespaces image, which is quite large. It's quite bulky. It has a bunch of tools installed. You can actually check the entire list at this link. But let's start to work. So I need to change something in the API. So let's go into the API. But before we do that, this is built in Node.js. So let's check which version we have, because I know we need 14. And we are actually on 16 in the standard image. So let's move to 14 first. Let me make this big. Okay, it's already installed. 14. And now I'm gonna npm install everything that I need. And let's start the application so that I have some idea what it's gonna do. Oh no, the installation doc wasn't complete. I miss something. I miss the functions runtime. So this API is an Azure function app. So let's make sure to install the function runtime. I'm gonna do a copy of the thing so I know for sure that it's gonna install. And now we're waiting to the installation and it's done. Now let's try another time, npm start. And here we go. It's actually starting up. Nice. So as you now can see, it says that the application is running and it's exposing port 7071. But as you can see here, it says that it exposes to localhost, which is kind of weird because I'm working in the cloud, right? How can I connect to localhost? Well, let's try out. Let's have a look at the catalog API. So as you can see, this is the data that I get from the API. Oh, zoom in a bit because you can actually not read that. This is the data that I get back from the API, but what you see here is that it connects to my Codespace URL instead of localhost, and it does that fully automatic. So it does all the translation for me. I can simply use in the code just localhost, and the translation is done by the host itself. So you don't have to know what the host is that you're developing on. It's just doing a routing underneath your code space. One of the cool things that we can do, if you go to ports, then you see that I exposed this port, but it's set to private, which basically means that I can give this to every employee in my company that is part of my organization on GitHub. And I can give them this link and they can go and check that link out. So especially when I start work on the Vue application, that starts to make sense because then I can give that link to a front-end person or a developer, and I can say, please check for me my work and see if this is what you meant before I make the actual change into a pull request. And they have to give feedback there. So the feedback loop gets way better, especially in your organization. But we can switch this up and make this public. And if I make it public, everyone with a GitHub account can check that link out and give me feedback. So especially if you work on open source projects or you're working with external people, as long as they have a GitHub account, it will work. Let's switch this back before you all break my demo. So this is the API. It's working. Now I want to make a change to the front end application. So let's check. Where's terminal? Here's terminal. Let's check the front end application. Where am I? View up. All right, we're now at 14. Yeah. We're gonna install again, but I have to. So as you can see, now we are downloading way more packages because it's NPM. We download the entire internet, but you see the speed here, and that's because we use a cloud-based instance that is hosted in the data center of GitHub. So we have super good upstream connection. All right. And you see that when I have to update or push or pull, it goes way faster than I would be on my home internet connection. Now we're gonna forward or run the application. npm serve. Now, let's have a look at the application. I forgot to create the storage account with the images, but you get the ID, I think. So it reads out this list of items, and here it shows them in an ice cream store. This is all nice, but as you can see, we're still working in a web browser. And while I like that when I'm on the go or when I'm doing light changes, when I'm doing actual work, I simply like to use my own VS Code. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to show you that we can connect to a VS Code by sharing an empty Visual Studio. Here we go. All right, so this is a completely new VS Code window. Nothing is done. The only thing that I've done is I authenticated my GitHub account, so it knows my GitHub handle. But now I can connect to a codespace. And of course, I have already one codespace running. So let's connect. Oh, then I have to share another codespace window. this one. So as you can see, this is my VS Code. And at the bottom here, you see that we are now connected to a code space. And if I open the terminal, or you can also see that I am still sharing the ports. Yeah, this is a bit unhandy because I have to share window by window. But if you go here now, I'm going to just do that and share that window as well. Present, share, window, this one. You now see that I am now connected to localhost. So if I go to yeah, so we're now seeing the exact same thing as we saw in the browser, only now it's running on localhost. But how can that be? Because we're still working in that cloud-based image or in the code space. So how can I connect to that by localhost? Again, underneath there's a port handling going on, so it makes a transparent link to the code space. So for your system, it runs on localhost. So if I now work on a other piece of software that is not running in a code space but only local on my workstation, I can simply connect to localhost and it works. It can fetch the data. It can do everything at once. So really nice interface and really good experience, if you ask me. Okay, let's stop sharing again.
In optie is Heineken Experience, Stadhouder.
And going back to VS Code. Where are we? This one. Yeah, sure. And we're back to VS Code. Okay, so while this is all great and stuff, you saw that I was still running on a standard image. And what I like to do is making sure that I don't have to install anything anymore. I just want to start up the code space and have everything that I need already installed, have the core tools for the Azure functions already there, so that I simply can say npm install, npm run, and we're good to go. We can do that with something called dev containers. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna create a dev containers I'm gonna add a configuration file for dev containers. And as you can see here, there is an entire list of possibilities. If I show all definitions, you see that it's really a long list with PHP, Python, Ruby, .NET. Think of it and it might already be there. If it's not here already, there's an open source repository from Microsoft and GitHub where you can add your definitions to, which is basically a Docker file. And then it will be put here and for others to use. So for now, I'm going to use this Azure Functions and Node.js container. I'm going to zoom a little bit back so you can see everything. So we have the Docker file. which especially says that, okay, we're gonna take the Azure Functions, Node.js, and then the core tools container based on 14. And we have this JSON configuration file, which we link to the Docker file. We say, well, we want to use 14. We want to do a port forward for the standard port. And we want to do some customizations. And here we can add extra extensions that we need. And as we know, this is a functions dev container. So it makes a lot of sense to install the Azure Tools plugin for Azure Functions, right? So even if I don't have that installed on my local installation, it will be installed by this Codespace or by this dev container. What I'm going to do now is we're going to commit this. So and I'm going to stop the Codespace. Stop sharing. And I'm now going to reshare GitHub. And we're back in GitHub. Now, you see here that we have one Codespace running, but we're gonna delete it. I want to have a completely fresh Codespace. So if I go here, we now see that the dev container setup is here. So let's go to Codespace, create a new Codespace. What you now see is that this takes a little bit longer than the standard because it builds for us the container that we have specified. The standard container is cached, is pre-built. This container is not, so that's why it takes longer. There is now a feature that you can pre-build your dev containers. So especially if you have large projects with lots of extra things in the container that takes a long time to boot, it makes a lot of sense to pre-build your container. And you as an admin for your organization now have the power to do that so that your developers can way faster start up their code spaces because the image is already built. So they only have to start the image. As you can see, zooming in, as you can see, it now says you are on an image defined in your dev container file. So it took that specification. Let's see if it's true, because now we go to the API. We install everything. Oh, no. We're on 14, which we expected it to be. Let's see if we can start the Azure function. And it started without us installing anything. I can now immediately go to my API. It's up and running. So without us having to do any installation, I can simply jump right into the code, start developing, and making sure that everything works without any manual steps whatsoever. And that all has to do with the fact that we now have a Docker file that installs the core tools, and we have this dev container JSON that specify everything. So there's a lot of things that we can do with this file. We can install extra extensions, but we can also specify, like in your let me see if that works. In your code space, you can also do a bunch of different things. So the spec is all public. It's made by Microsoft, and you can also use this in your VS Code with the Docker extension. So then it builds a container on your local workstation, and you work inside of that container. So it's a code spaces on your local workstation, which is not which is not the same as the code space, but it's a first step into code spaces when you're not actually there yet to use code spaces. And as you can see, it says, well, it's recommended to install Docker. You can do that, but it isn't really necessary. This is the demonstration part. Going back to the presentation. So you want to use this, right? Because it's really cool. But you have to be a GitHub team, or you have to use GitHub Enterprise, because there is payment involved. You use a cloud-based instance, and you have a bunch of options to choose from. So you can have a 2-core up to 32 cores, especially for the larger applications that might be interesting. And that's also way bigger than the dev workstations that I know. I've never been more than 8 and 16, so it would be cool if I have a really large .NET thing to build that I can use all those cores and all that memory only for $288 an hour. You only pay this amount when your code space is running. And as we all know, we as developers don't actually develop 8 hours a day. So when you're in a meeting, your code space simply shuts down. There's a standard timeout of half an hour. So if it's not doing anything, it will simply automatically shut down in half an hour. It will not be deleted. It will only shut down. So when it's shut down, you only pay for storage, which is 0.007 per gigabyte per month. And that's also the price you pay for the pre-built code space. So when the image is waiting for you to use, you only pay the inactive storage fee. Once again, you have to have a team or an enterprise account because of the credit card details. Do you all have any questions? And if you'd like to know more, check out these links. Let's see.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much, Daniel, for your great presentation. And we're checking on the chat right now and see. We have first, let's start. Ashish said, thank you for an excellent introduction to Codespaces.
Thank you.
And Nico said, no question, but thanks a lot for a thorough presentation. And we have a question from Wayne. Is it
Oh, yes,
just
Wayne.
Linux
Yeah.
containers?
Right now, it's just Linux. I have heard that they are looking into Windows, but I'm not sure on any timelines or anything. You can check out the Codespaces discussion board that's open. So you can simply go in there, check that, and vote on the things that you find important. So to see that that they work on that first. But if you use .NET and you use the later versions, they are supported on Linux containers. But I do get that there are some applications that really need Windows containers. I'm sorry, it can't be done yet with Codespaces.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your answer. We have another question from Ashish.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure where they are hosted. I guess it's in Azure, as GitHub is now part of Microsoft. But they are hosted on GitHub infrastructure. I'm also not really sure if they are hosted in the US or in Europe, or that you can switch. But I know that if that's not there yet, it will come definitely, because here in the Netherlands or in Europe, we also have laws that for some companies they really need to be hosted in our region. So I'm guessing that will be possible. Yes.
Okay, thank you for the question. I'm not sure if this, there's another question from Ashish. I think this is related, right? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So right now, I'm thinking if the integration with the private networks is already there, but I don't think it is. But I think that the integration with Azure will be more and more and more. So I think that there will be a time that you can interface with private networks, but I'm not sure yet. So right now it's just when you want to develop something which is kind of standalone, and you want to do a quick build. So if you ask me why would I use Codespaces, for now I see the biggest use case in a classroom. So you all work in a similar compute environment. It doesn't. So if you have Windows, if you have a Mac, if you have whatever you want, it can be done on a tablet. But you all work in the same environment. So for the teacher, it's really amazing that you all work from the container. You all have the same setup, same plugins. It makes it really easier to do trainings and stuff. And you don't have to have expensive laptops in order to run Codespaces. So again, in a classroom where there's not a lot of budget, Codespaces can be a really good thing to help out there.
Mhm. We also posted here a link to the GitHub Codespaces discussion board that was mentioned here a little bit earlier. And Another question here from Wayne. He asks, is it the same on Windows subsystem for Linux?
I think it is. It simply runs a container, right? So, and that also is what is happening on WSL. If you run a Docker instance there and you start a VS Code interface, you can interface with that container. It's basically the same thing what's happening inside of a code space. It starts a container on a container interface, and I'm not sure if they run Docker or they use BuildKit. I don't know the specifics underneath. You just get a container, and in that container you can do everything that you want. You can evenly start other containers in your container. So especially for test cases and stuff like that, if I need to have a MongoDB instance, I can simply spin up that container and I can interact with that container in my code space.
Okay.
No questions so far, actually. I have a random question. I haven't used a lot of Codespaces yet, but I'm curious, how does it work? Does it work offline, or it needs, you really need to have it?
No.
No, of course,
You
yes.
you do need internet connection. So
Yeah, that's
that's the only
yeah.
downside, right? You do
Downside,
need
yeah.
you
Yes.
do need a stable-ish internet connection
okay.
for it to work. But as soon as you have that, you can run it with lots of different interfaces. So it can be done from your phone, it can be done from an iPad, from your laptop. That doesn't matter, but you do need internet.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, I'm just thinking both ways, because sometimes when you work remotely on a train, sometimes you get a bad connection. So if you're like doing the classroom or development with the code
Yeah.
spaces,
So
but
what
that's a
I
downfall at
saw,
least. Yeah.
yeah. So the thing that I saw in the train is that yes, it can have a glitch. That's fine, but there's no interaction when you don't have connection, right? So
Oh.
as soon as you want to build things, that doesn't happen. If you have a watch, like with Node.js, when you do serve, it does a watch on your file, right? If you save the file, you cannot save the file because you're in the train or in a bad connection. And as soon as the connection is back, the file gets saved. But if you're in a train having a bad connection and you cannot save the file, and you think you saved it, but you didn't, things happen.
Yes.
And that's the same thing. Always, you have to push in order for this stuff to be in Git, right? And when I just started to use the code spaces, I forgot to push and then destroyed my code space. And then my code was gone.
All right, that's good.
Because it's saved
That's
in the code
interesting.
space. And you really have to
Okay.
push in order for it to be in Git.
Yeah.
So as you stop your code space, nothing gets lost because it's just stopped and you can start it up again. But if you delete the code space, that entire box where you were in is gone. So if there was anything that you didn't push yet or didn't save yet, you lose it. So you have to be mindful on what you're doing and where you're in, because it's not your laptop. It's not that you open it back up and you can continue the work. You have to start it up again, and then you can start working it.
Okay, thank you for the answer. That's a good beginners tips and tricks to know to get started, because maybe you've built something great and then you wanna you lost your connection. It happens unexpectedly, so it's good to know these things. But is there anything else that you think beginners of GitHub Codespaces need to know based on your hands-on experience in this technology?
So what I tell everyone, if you can't use Codespaces yet because you're just one person and not a team or whatever, or your company doesn't want to go there yet, start with dev containers. That's the first. Just start with dev container specifications. Start with working in containers, because then in your mind you're already there, and then the step to use a code space gets smaller and smaller. And you have the same capabilities that you can share your environment with your team members. So your entire team is working from the same code space. And if you have an open source repo, it makes it way easier for me to contribute something back if I have an environment that is ready to go in a container that gives me everything that I need to get started, then that I first have to like find out what version of npm you are using, or what versions I need to have installed. Give me a container and I'm good, right? That's so. If you're new, start with dev containers, and then move on to easier workflows or other workflows with code spaces.
All right. Thank you for the answer. Do you have any questions, Håkan?
Actually, do you know what is the actual cost if you want to be this GitHub Enterprise Cloud customer? It sounds expensive, but is it?
So there's this whole page about it. It might be expensive, but it also gives you a lot of enterprise features that for you might be very interesting, like SSO. So I can link up with my internal SSO system, and I can simply log in to GitHub with SSO. But it also gives extra build minutes, hidden repos. So there's a bunch of stuff that you get for it. But if you're small, start with teams. Right? If you're a team, you can have more people in your repo. You can have hidden repos. You get extra build minutes. And last time I checked, it was $5 a month, but I'm not sure on the translation of monies in other, like I work in euros, so I have no idea how that translates to $1 or whatever other people are using in the chat. So,
yeah, that's interesting. I have another question that I'm like, you did mention GitHub Classroom, and I'm also like, I teach sometimes code or Azure stuff. If you're a teacher, how is it like cheaper to use the GitHub Classroom than the premium like pricing models?
I don't know a lot about Classroom yet. I do find it very interesting. When I checked, Codespace wasn't a part of Classroom yet, but I really hope that they are going to do that, because I really see an added value there. So I would love to see it used in the classroom, but right now you have to be a team in order to use it. So I use it to teach internally. Like, okay, I have this dev container that has the environment and all the extensions that I would like people to use. And that's all shared to everyone inside of the code space. And then we're all in the same code space, and it doesn't matter what system they use. So it can be a Mac, it can be Windows, it can be a Chromebook. As long as they have a browser and internet, then it's fine. I really hope they are gonna make this part of Classroom.
Yeah. Yes.
I was actually checking out on that link that you posted here, using GitHub Codespaces with GitHub Classroom, and then they say, let me post that information here.
Teach, starter assignment. Okay.
Oh, it's now part of it, as far as I can see. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
So that's a good thing. And then they also have a benefit here. If you're a verified teacher, you get the free monthly allowance of GitHub Codespaces that you can use in the GitHub Classroom for a class of 50 people.
Yes.
50 people, nice.
That's really nice, actually. I got curious about this because I'm a teacher, like a trainer, but I do mentoring as well. And when I do mentoring, a few of who I mentor, they don't have their own working computers, like the privilege that we have. And the only thing that they have is like a browser. So I was thinking a possibility of using GitHub spaces for classroom as a good way to like break that barrier of like not having a hardware computer and just use the browser, like regardless of whatever operating system you have. So that's the reason why I brought it up. But this is great news. I'll look it up more.
Cool.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
it looks really nice. Okay.
Yes, sounds good. I don't think we have more questions, Håkan. I don't have any. I got everything answered. So thank you so much, Daniel. Do you have anything else for our audience before we end our session and maybe meet also in our fika? Do you have anything else like how they can follow you, contact you, or any speaking engagement or something?
Right here, here
Where?
is
Twitter.
my Twitter handle. It's my GitHub handle. You can basically find me anywhere with that handle. You can also link me on LinkedIn. It's just Daniel Paulus. Thank you for your attention on this Saturday, and I loved to be here. So thank you for the invitation.
Yes, thank you so much for setting time today to share and prepare your presentation, and even to our friends and audience that joined us live today. So this session is recorded, so you may share and rewatch it anytime later. So
we
should we
can
go?
we can show this link here. So so this is a QR code that you can use in order to connect to our Zoom meeting, and we can also post the link here in the comment section.
Yes, that's right. Yes, you're right. So you're welcome to join us on a short Zoom meeting if you want. You have a question or direct question to us or Daniel. All right. Yeah, I'm so glad we made this, Håkan and Daniel. So like, so it's time to switch to the other one. Let's see. Let me share the learner badges again to those that have missed it. So feel free to claim your Azure Heroes learner badge for the learners today. And yes, so thank you so much, everyone, and have a great weekend. All right.